I'm Rob with JaxPunx, and we're here with George Cornwell today, formerly known as Jerry Cornwell, if you guys used to hang out back in the day, in the punk rock music scene in the early 80s.
Actually, yeah, in the early 80s. I actually started in the music in 1979. When I was listening to the music back in 76, reading Rolling Stone magazine and getting into the punk music scene that they were talking about and following it. And then I went to see my first punk rock band, which was Blondie in Gainesville.
Wow.
And yeah, in 1979, July 1979, I went and saw Blondie in Gainesville. And I was 18, approaching 19. And so I was intimidated. I said to myself, maybe I'm too old to pick up a guitar. And then I said, no, I'm not. I read in Rolling Stone that Stephen Jones, guitarist for Sex Pistols, had only been playing for a year. And I said, I can do that. And on top of that, I'll take lessons. So after that concert with Blondie, I went out, bought a guitar, and began taking guitar lessons. And that was it for me.
Fuck yeah. Why'd you like punk rock in the first place? What drew you to it?
Well, Rolling Stone was raving about it until like 1980s when they stopped writing about it, and they decided to go into becoming an entertainment magazine and not really a rock and roll magazine. So, but anyhow, I was listening, they were raving about it. You weren't going to hear anything on the radio. I was literally buying the albums right off the street without even listening to them. But that being said and done, a lot of the catalog was actually available at the public library. So when you asked me the question, what was the first album I stole, I literally did steal albums from the public library, and that was The Jam, This Is the Modern World. That was the first one I stole.
Yeah.
And then I took a couple of others, The Clash, and then I bought my first punk album, which was Never Find the Bollocks, the Sex Pistols, because that was the one Rolling Stone raved about, and it was great. That was it for me.
I remember. Yeah. I liked it too. Yeah. So, what was the first punk band that you saw live? That was Blondie. Man, you're peeling away at my list here.
Yeah, it was. The thing about that was at that time, the punk music, new wave punk music was really taking off. And the University of Florida were having, student government was having the festivals, having multi-bands play down Lake Alice Fields at the college. So we would go to Gainesville and we saw all the punk rock movement taking off there. The next band I went to see.
What year was that?
79, 80, the Halloween of 1980, we went to Gainesville to see the shows, and it was the Plasmatics.
Ooh.
Oh, wow. I bet that was badass.
I guess it was badass, but I thought it was pretty terrible. It was just such an exhibition of murder and math and stuff. But it was Halloween on the college campus. Everybody was just messed up. And all that being said and done, nobody got hurt or anything like that. So it was an amazing time.
Wow.
But we would go see Lake Alice Field. We would be able to see all the bands coming through. The Talking Heads came through there. Next Halloween saw Gang of Four, which really blew my mind.
Wow.
And then just kept on going and going. And the whole time here I was playing guitar, and then I started getting interested in being in a band.
Yeah. So what were some of the clubs that were happening in, I mean, I know of some of the ones when I was coming up, but you were a little bit before my time, here in Jacksonville.
Yeah, the clubs were, we started playing, I started taking guitar lessons in 79, and I was introduced, my guitar instructor introduced me to David Whitten, who was from Jacksonville, and he had actually been in New York City in the 70s, and he was totally adept into the punk scene. And so him and I got together, and I started to learn about getting into the music and doing that. And from there, I met some other kids, and we started getting together, and we were forming bands. Now this is back in the late 70s, early 80s. Mm-hmm. And at this time, I'll let you know that all the music was about cover bands. There was nobody writing music in Jacksonville. The phenomena of cover bands, which is now called tribute bands, was just incredible. People would just come in and see the music played live, and there was a big thing for that. So I started to form a band where we just did cover songs. And I met Carl Beaver, KP Beaver, I met him, and we hit it off, and we started doing sets of cover songs, the Police, the Vibrators, Ramones, etc., etc.
Okay.
But we weren't writing our own music. We were doing cover songs.
Yeah.
So we did that, and then we performed our first set at the Blighted area. But we played at the first Blighted area, which was across the street from where the traditional Blighted area would go to be. I forgot what the name of the band, what the place is now was called, but we played there first, and we played that for a few years, and then we moved on from doing that and just following the other bands and other music scenes. And then, that being said, then you got the emergence of other bands. There was the Great Invisibles, had Arvid Smith and a gentleman, Richard Poore. They were part of that, and they were like the first new wave band of the city. And then the Attitudes came along around the same time. So they were actually both of the bands were the bands at the same time moving. And they were doing, the Attitudes were doing original material. And then from there, I remember then Ray started coming around with the Switchblades. He came out with that, with Michael Butler, Rob Ack, and I believe Steve Gallagher was playing guitar with them. They came out in '82. And when they came in, they were doing original music, although they were also doing cover songs. And I'll let you know, they were actually doing cover songs better than the original bands.
Ooh.
Their musicmanship was a bit better than the rest of us just starting to get into the punk scene. I'm not saying that towards the Attitudes, but towards myself, KP, and other people. So they were happening, and they dictated the scene.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Ray was something else, man. He was
he really
very
was.
friendly.
The more and more I think about it, when one gets to the question for as great Blondie was, I really felt that the best punk band I ever saw was Steve Solet on the Switchblades. I really believe that.
He was so badass.
Yeah, I was sitting here watching. He encompassed what Wendy O. Williams had in Plasmatics, but he took it to a much higher, better level. And it was a really great band, and I was glad when I would move forward after leaving with KP. I moved forward and began performing. We were able to talk to Blaine Cruz, and David Barnett and myself were trying to find a band to front. And originally our plan was, and David Whitten left me with the plan that we wanted to do was we wanted to have a female singer front the band. Nobody was doing that.
Yeah.
So David and I got it together, and we found Leah Walker, a girl on the west side, and we formed a band called Censored Sleep. And we played with Brooks Williams. David played bass. Leah sang. And we played one gig at another very popular club, Manapaters.
Okay.
We did that, but it fell through. That didn't work out. And then from there, David and I ran into Blaine Cruz.
I knew Blaine.
And we talked Blaine into singing.
Oh, wow. So Blaine
We
was
talked
somebody-
Blaine into singing. We
He's a
talked
good
him into
frontman.
He is. He was the best. He was really great. And from there, I started performing and playing with Blaine. And when I was with Blaine, at that point in time, I learned what I needed to do was write songs. And he gave me the opportunity to begin writing songs.
Yeah.
And that's what we did.
Yeah. Why'd you pick punk rock instead of playing some other kind of music?
The bottom line is, for all the other type of music, it's the easiest to play.
Yeah.
You just learn the bar chords, and then you just play. The Ramones just played the bar chords, and you were able to do that.
Yeah.
And then as time passes, you start to challenge yourself, but it's very easy to play.
Yeah.
And accordingly, it's a bit, I would imagine it's a bit easier to write songs for it.
I loved it because it was so raucous too. You know,
Yeah,
was
I mean, it
was
could
like
be
spoke
where you
to the
want.
area.
It's, it quickly diversified into new wave, into funk with Gang of Four.
Mhm.
So it deviated as it began, but in the beginning, it was all about the Ramones, Sex Pistols, and just straight bar chords on the guitar.
Yeah.
And
So what was the first punk show you played? Was it with Blaine or was
the
it
first punk show I played
was it
was
Blighted Area?
it was the show at Blighted Area with KP.
Yeah.
David Witten from Gainesville. He's from Jacksonville, but he was going to school in Gainesville. He played bass. And then Kevin Roberts, known as Scooby, played the drums.
Okay.
And that was the first gig we played, was at the very first Blighted Area. And then we went over really well, and we started playing pretty regularly there.
So what's maybe just a brief list of the bands that you played with when you played shows like at Blighted Area? What were some of the other local bands or bands that came?
Well,
through?
we were
What was
playing. I think we played Blue Rhythm Club. That was the name of the cover band of KP. We pretty much broke up after that because I had talked to David, and David's plan and I, and we proceeded what I was doing with KP. David and I decided that we were going to go up to New York and find a female singer and do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went up there. So I broke off the band, or we broke up the band, and KP and Kevin went on their own ways. And then I went up to New York. That didn't work out. Then I came back down and started playing with Blaine. And then Blaine and I started going back and learning how to write the songs.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was in the mid-'80s.
Did you do albums with them? Did y'all publish anything?
With Blaine Cruz, David and I recorded with John Keys at Keys Studio. So we recorded an album about the same time that the Switchblades recorded their album in St. Augustine.
Okay.
So we got into the recording thing, we were doing that. And we started playing with them a lot, which was a priceless experience. They were the best.
Oh yeah. Who were some of the friends that you used to hang out with? And I'm looking for leads for somebody else I can interview.
Well, a couple of other people that were formidable or who were of the scene was Woody Beck,
Uh-huh.
a great drummer from the West Side, Rats of the West Side. Woody Beck was great. Ed Rackrow was a great guitar player. He would play with KP and Kevin later on. Just Matt Hendricks. This is some guys from the Lake Shore area.
Rats on the West Side.
From the West Side, this is all West Side. And then I did this gig with, I did a recording with the Smashed Armadillos with David.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, David and I did that with Todd Wormnest playing bass, another rat of the West Side.
Mm-hmm.
So we did that. I had gotten involved with 4-track recording, a little Yamaha 4-track recorder.
Okay.
And I was in a down period where I really wasn't having a band. So I went ahead and started recording my own music, everything. And I talked David into singing, and he did the recording. Todd recorded the bass. And we recorded like a 6-song demo of the Smashed Armadillos.
So you released some with the Smashed Armadillos. You released with KP no, with Blaine Cruz.
With Blaine Cruz.
Yeah. What was the name of that album? Or
Blaine Cruz Band.
Blaine
Originally, at the time, we called it a demo, but it was a bona fide album. You
Yeah.
know, it was mastered and all that stuff, and we
Awesome.
put that out.
Yeah, and I guess Ray, you were saying St. Augustine, that was probably DeVito.
Yeah, they were with DeVito doing recording down there,
Uh-huh.
doing their thing there. So,
Did you ever go out to WAGs for music, or where did you get your music?
yeah, Henry Wagner was another person I played with. He played bass. Woody and I and him got together in his store in Orange Park, and we had a great jam session and a great thing. And that happened a lot. You know, we get into a room with people and see what kind of things you can come up with and just do jam type of things. But, more often than not, nothing really fruitful comes out of it.
Yeah.
You're when you're in a band,
Other than having fun.
other than having fun, but you know, anything more serious than that, it's really difficult to go ahead and do that. So there's a lot of hit or misses, and those were misses.
Yeah. So back in the day, we didn't have Google, so you couldn't just look on YouTube or Google or anything like that. How did you find your new music? What magazines?
Music papers. I don't remember the name of the music papers, but they were filled with ads. And
So like Maximum Rock and Roll? Or?
Yeah, I'd like that, but there was a local one here. I don't remember the name of it. And word of mouth.
Yeah.
Word of mouth. I knew these guys. These guys were like 1 degree connected from each other. Ed, David Barnett, Brooks Williams was a drummer of Lakeshore, Matt Hendricks, Alan Cowart. We were all, albeit it was kind of ironic, they all were coming from the west side.
Yeah.
It was really ironic how we were doing that. It was really separated from like the beaches and stuff. But that was where we were evolving around.
It was weird because pockets were forming.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah, pockets were forming. We were still, it was very Southern rockish, and it was very cover band type of a thing, which as time goes by, you know, I give a lot of respect for that.
It's hard to play covers.
It really is.
Yeah.
You really have to deliver.
And to do it justice.
And do it justice. It's really hard, and in these days and times, it's even harder to do it when you're just not finding people interested in watching a cover band unless it's a tribute band, and I don't know if I can go that far.
Yeah, and you're gonna dress up like.
Yeah, I'm not in. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think we can do that. But it's a different environment completely today. So that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so the whole time I was doing this, David had moved up to New York, and we started collaborating on songs. And then in August of '86, I started going up there to recording sessions. So I went up there in early '87. We did a 4-track recording in Lower East Side, New York City, and that's where I met Noli. And then I figured this is the band I was going for. And that being said and done, August the 3rd, I moved up to New York City, and I formed the band with Noli, David Witten, and Celia Farber was a drummer. And so we formed a band, and we started going through the motions of getting into the New York City scene.
What was the band's name?
Started off with being the Deadly Ticks, then we went to Glue Gun, then later on down the road it became No Vaccine, blah, blah, blah. But it was No Vaccine in the end. But Noli started playing, and we were all doing our gig, and then we went to do the session at CBGB's, and of all things, we were on there play with one of the unsigned bands that played, and we were playing with, of all people, the Switchblades.
No shit.
Absolutely no shit.
Wow.
We were there, and I'm sitting there, and there's Michael Butler and Ray there, and we were going, it was audition nights is what it was. Those are all the unsigned bands were audition nights, and they were there. They just scooted in town and gotten on the list, but we were there, and we played, and I said hello to all of them, and that was that. But anyhow, they went their direction, and we went ours. We stayed working in the city.
Did you run around the Lower East Side? Is that where?
Yeah, it was all around the Lower East Side.
Yeah.
We played shows at CB's, Space at Chase, all those places downtown. But then the thing for us, of course, with particularly, although David have left us now, we had other bass players that we were playing with. But the thing was, you know, we wanted a record deal. So the name of the game was to start going into a regimen of playing the tri-state areas. So Noli and I hooked up with Patrick and Jeff, and we began playing a circuit every month. We would play up in Boston at the Rathskeller, then we'd play in the city at CB's, or the Continental was a club there. There's lots of different clubs. And then we had the Jersey Shore. We were playing on the Jersey Shore down in Long Branch. Then we'd play Philadelphia, some shows there. And then we'd play upstate at the QE2 in Albany, New York. And we started doing that regimen for years.
Cool.
That's
Are
awesome.
you in a van or what are you doing?
Yeah, we were in a van. Sometimes we were 2 cars, but mainly it was a van. Then we were looking for management, and we ended up playing at the Limelight with, forgot the name of the band. I had their name here, but
Well, you can come back to it.
yeah, we'll come back to them. Alice Donut. We played with Alice Donut.
Wow, I
We
remember
played
that.
with Alice Donut. We played with Alice Donut up to the Limelight. We met management, and he really liked us, and he wanted to, and so he agreed to try and get us a deal. And so Noli and I, with Glue Gun, we got a deal with SBV Records out of Germany.
Nice.
We got a deal with them, but we had to change the name of the band because Glue Gun was a name already being used by a band that was being distributed by SBV. So then we changed the name to No Vaccine.
Yeah.
No Vaccine. So go with that. So we did that.
No vaccine.
No Vaccine. I'll tell you about that in a second. But anyhow, we did that. We got signed a deal, and then we did a tour with Fishbone in Germany.
Oh,
We did a
nice.
European tour with Fishbone.
That's awesome.
And then we opened up in Berlin for Fishbone in Berlin, and that was the best show of my life we ever had. We played with them. Angelo cheered us on and pushed us on. We did 4 encores before Fishbone came on. It was
Those guys
just,
are
they were the
super
best.
They're super positive.
They're the best.
Yeah.
Fishbone is just the best.
Yeah.
And we did a tour, so we did that. Then after we did that, we came back to the States. We just lost momentum. The other 2 guys in the band, Patrick and Jeff, they had families, they had other things, and it kind of just fell apart from there.
Yeah.
And, that's where we just left it. And so we kind of coasted for a while up in New York City along those lines. We played with some other people, and the record companies would come up and they say to Noli, oh, we like you, you're great, but we don't like the band. And that's the whole phenomenon that just carried through the whole time. And then we just got tired and kind of let the wind go through with all of that. And then 9/11 happened. And when 9/11 hit, Noli's offices were destroyed. So as bad as that was, and it was terrible, the thing about it was Noli began being one of the first remote telecommuters. She worked from home. So we did that and played a little bit and then backed down. And then about 2004, 2005, we took the ideas of coming back to Jacksonville and starting down here. And so we came back down in 2005, gradually worked our ways in 2008, and then we were here, bought the house, the home in Riverside, and that's where we were when we came back here.
Been here ever
Nice.
since.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And
What a
then
great story, man. You guys have
it was
had some fun.
It was a lot of fun. Then we came back here, and then we put the band together, and then we'd done 3 albums, 2 albums with SBV, and we did the first album on our own. And then we started shopping around the albums, and then we got weird comments coming back, and they said, well, we like you guys' music and all, we're just not really into what you're into. And we're like, what do you mean, what are we into? Well, the no vaccine thing.
Oh!
This was when, in the early 2000s, the no vaccine phenomena became
Oh,
a really
gosh.
big thing. And we just threw everything
Like
up in
it's
the air.
just a
So
name, man.
That's it. It's just a name, but truth hurts. Reality was just bad. So then we decided to change our name to the Airstrikes.
Yeah.
And we played several gigs here in Jacksonville in the early 2010s, 2011s with Jack Twatman on the drum, and Clay Duran played bass. We played a few shows here.
Yeah.
And then also we were actively involved with Cork Arts District. Noli named it Cork, so we took it from the Dumbo from Brooklyn and did that.
Okay.
So we came down and got involved in that, and that kind of sidetracked us. And we did that for a few years. And then we decided to move forward, and ever since we came back in 2008, we decided that we really wanted to buy a building downtown. And we just took our time, And then finally in 2022, in the middle of the pandemic, we got some serious bites, and then we fell in here with the Unicat.
This place is
building.
great.
We nabbed it. So we had enough money and everything to make it happen. And so we purchased the Unicat building.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then how long did it take you to restore it?
It took about 2.5 to 3 years. It was, it took a while, but we got it done the way we wanted it to do. We're continued to doing it. And then in July of last year, we opened it with the first show. And we're really happy. We're very excited about it. And
So why don't you give a plug for the Unicat? What's the address and
Unicat Gallery's here at 602 East Union Street, also known as across from the Old City Cemetery. So you can't miss it, and if you miss it, the ghouls will let you know. But anyhow, and we're down from the Union Terminal, and this is in the downtown area, the Union Core, and it's just taken off. It's going to be really great.
And I mean, I was just downstairs looking at some of the art. Who is the featured artist that's coming?
This month it's Hillary Hogue. Hillary Hogue will be exhibiting a
Amazing.
show on the 28th, and there'll be the pub crawl will come here March the 1st. So if you get a chance, come on out and see us. You'll see the building. You know, the building will be open. We have several artists here that have studios here, and the studios will be open also. You get a good view of the building as it is.
That's awesome.
So tell me about the print above your head right there.
One of the earliest people I started to play with was Lee Harvey. And Lee Harvey was very good. He was a very good singer, but he had difficulty, like many singers, getting with people. And in our times, you know, you have to play with the band, you have to work with the band. And he tried hard. Then when I moved up to the city, I immediately got a job working as a screen reclaimer in fine art screen printing. And I imposed around Lee. I said, Lee, maybe you should get into visual arts and the fine arts. I think you would be really good at that. And so Lee began the fine art guerrilla warfare that he was doing with fine arts in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
And these are some prints that Lee and I did when we were at a time when we were on good terms with each other.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you got that.
Yeah.
That's a Harvey. What other ones? Oh, you got that one right there. Did you show that one?
It was really neat. He was a great guy. I'm sorry he passed way too soon, but that's sad. And
Yeah.
I have some prints and stuff, and life goes on.
I got to meet him.
Did
he was
you?
a great guy. Yeah.
Yeah, he was great.
Mhm.
Yeah.
When he came back,
Yeah.
I met him. Oh gosh, I don't know when.
Yeah.
It was
It was a while ago.
2012
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah, I came back and I immediately started doing some prints with him, like you see here. He was doing painting and stuff like that, and it was, you know, we kept doing in those lines, kept working on it.
He was awesome,
It
dude.
was fun. It was a great guy.
Yeah. Well, shoot, man, this has been a great interview, man. You've got some. You
I
were
was
from
here-
a time way before me. I
Yeah.
didn't start till the late 80s.
Yeah, I was started 79 and 80, and it was an amazing experience. As time passes, I think about it, and I think how grateful it was. And I really think one thing I want to enforce, and another thing is, of all the times when I was playing in Jacksonville and working with Jacksonville and writing songs and performing in Jacksonville, I will let you know that the talent here in Jacksonville more than stands up to you with what I came across in New York City. You know, a lot of people in New York City, just particularly people concentrating on original material, just really, you know, nowhere near as good as what there was in Jacksonville.
That's awesome.
I believe that.
Wow. Kick ass.
Yeah.
That's my experience.
That's awesome. What a great story, man.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I wanted
It's a
to
pleasure.
ask you about like where you got clothing back in the day. You know, because there wasn't like Hot Topic or anything like that around.
Well, here and there were some clothes shops there frankly, one of the best places where we really did clothing that we took back with us was Edge City. Gunnell was really on touch with things, so we would periodically come to visit my family during the 90s when we were in the city, and we would get clothes in Edge City, and we would just go shopping and do things like that. And then there was the place over in the Village. That's where I got these pants. I forgot the name of them.
Trash and Vaudeville?
Trash and Vaudeville. Trash and Vaudeville. Yeah. Trash and Vaudeville got a good visit a couple of times a year. Definitely.
Yeah. What about bars? I know this is New York, but what about bars in New York? Did you ever go to like Otto's Shrunken Head or the Double Down or
Otto's
A7 or
Otto's kicked up a little after us. The clubs up in the city was CB's, the Continental, Spacek Chase. There's a pool bar over off of New York University. There were several up. They would pop up and be closed over and over again, which was a big thing. There were just so many of them that popped up, but CB's somehow stood the time, though even they went down. Mercury Lounge, Limelight, the Ritz, which moved all over the place. There was a lot of places to play, and there was a lot of bands trying to play those places. So,
yeah. Are there any like people you want to shout out that maybe have crossed over or fans or friends that you would go to shows with that you want to remember?
Well, I want to remember KP. KP played with him, and he went on to his own direction and formed Body Count, which was a very, very monumental band in town. And Kevin, who's out there, I was still playing drum. Kevin Roberts, a lot of people knew him as Scooby. The drummers, I knew him very well. KP and Kevin met up with a great friend of mine, Dave Nissen, and Ed Rackero, and they formed a band, Priority One, about the same time, just before I formed the Blaine Cruz Band, or when Blaine and I formed the Blaine Cruz Band. And then there's Matt Hendricks, who was playing with a band called the Splinters out of Lake Shore, and he was with Scott and Chris Hughes. And then, of course, I want to shout it again to Woody, who was really great. Woody formed a band with Ed called Last Breath, which was a great band that just didn't getting off to the right start that it deserved. So I want to sign him. And then Henry Wagner with Wag's Record Store. He was really great too, and a part of the scene that is very valuable. Also, there was Frankie, who I think I heard just passed away, Frankie Phillips of the Attitudes. He was monumental in the scene. And then, there was Tommy Berlin, Mike Butler, Rob Ack of the Switchblades, and that was, they were all great guys, and I'm really grateful to have known them and to played with them.
Yeah.
How many guitars have you had in your lifetime?
I stopped counting after 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I still have them. I traded one and I regretted doing it, and I said, I haven't been able to do it again.
Yeah, don't make that mistake again.
Don't make that mistake again, yeah.
I want to hear about your visual arts because you're a really great printmaker, so I want to hear about that journey.
So when I got up to New York City, I immediately got a job working as reclaiming the silk screens or the screens in a fine art screen printing job. I think the reason I got the job was because I spoke English. But anyhow, I jumped into it to get that job, and I just fell in love with the whole thing. It was a shop that did the Warhols back in the 60s and the 70s, and we're still doing them in Urtes. So I got involved in that. And then after that company went down, I went into various other companies that was doing screen printing. I developed a reputation. And then I decided that when we moved to Jacksonville, I was going to continue screen printing. One thing about it too is it did the transition over to water-based inks, which is a lot more healthier than the stuff I was doing with oil-based inks in the New York City summers, which would literally get your nose bleeding. So, but anyhow, I got involved in fine art screen printing, and one of the first collaborations was when I came back to Jacksonville and met up with Lee Harvey.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then, what about your images that you create?
My strength is actually working with other artists.
Okay.
I do some creations, but I really am more happy working with the other artists. I've worked with several of them here in Jacksonville, and I really enjoy that. And I think that's the best thing I've had, is just doing proofs and working with them and then figuring it out from there. The most recent one I did was with a Duval Destroyer, and we're going over to the transition into fabric, t-shirts and clothing along those lines. There's a new phenomena where you just do that instead of doing long runs of t-shirts. You do one-offs and things of that nature, and that's become really big.
I totally understand how you like collaborating and helping other
Yeah,
people.
that's essentially that was part of the trade I was doing when I was in fine art. We were working for publishers, and that's essentially what we were doing. We were working with the publishers to create all the various different artist portfolios that we printed.
Yeah, I'm having a blast recording people.
Oh, good for you.
I don't really feel like playing music myself. I like recording other people.
Yeah.
And helping them get there.
Yeah, you're doing music recording still?
Yeah.
Good.
And it's fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
It's a blast. Yeah. Well, cool. I guess that's it, and we'll see you on the next one.
All right. Thank you for your time and interview today,
Thank you.
George.
You're awesome, man.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
JaxPunx!